we started class with just some estimating, and I said, what is 50% of 120? And some of you struggled with that. 50% is just a half. 50 out of 100 is 50%. 50 hundredths is the same as a half. So you just take half of 120, which is $60. Then I said, what's 5% of 120? Well, look at the relationship between 50 and 5. 5 is a tenth of 50. So you just take a tenth of 60, which is 6. And then what's 50% of 12? Well, 12 is a tenth of 120. Half of 12 is 6. And then 5% of 12 is going to be a tenth of 6, which is 60 cents. So just practicing some mental math. All right, we checked your homework. This is what that number 2 should have been. Remember, this is a discrete get graph. You don't connect these points because Miguel only put money in one time a week. So it doesn't make sense to go to 1.5 and see a number here. He did not put any money here. So you can't have anything between $520 in his savings and $540 in his savings. And then this was the graph for number 4 with the years and the tree's radius. The radius depends on the number of years the tree's been growing. The longer the tree grows, the bigger the tree gets. Okay, and then to solve letter C, in how many years will the tree have a radius of 20 centimeters? And you put 20 in for y, and you solve the equation, and it's in 16 years, and then you check it. A half is 16 plus 12 is 20. And then this was the one for y equals 4x, and y equals the opposite of 4x, number 5. And then the absolute value graph of number 10, we just talked about how y equals x is the blue line. And when I say y equals the absolute value of x, that just means y cannot be negative because distance is not negative. So y has to be positive, which just literally takes this part of the blue line in the third quadrant and flips it up, because I always go up for y. And I get this V-shaped graph. And the V shape is always the graph of an absolute value. All right, so today what we did is we solved equations with tables and graphs using your graphics calculator, and then we wrote some equations. So I said, suppose we have this equation, and you guys knew that with this, there's only one answer. 4 times 2 is 8, and 8 plus 3 is 11. But suppose it was one that I didn't know the answer for. I can use my graphics calculator by taking out 11 and putting in y, because there are infinite solutions for this. And then I use my second function of my graph, and you go to my table. So this is solving it the way that you know how to solve equations. But the way that I use my graphics calculator is I'm just going to take out 11 and put in y, enter that in y equals, use the second function of the graph, and you can see your table. And then for y, look in your table when y is 11 and look to the left and see that x is 2. So that's a way to use your table. Then we also used your graph. If you look at page 135 in your book, to use your graph. In your calculator, you'll do y equals, and you'll look at your graph. Oh, this is still the table, excuse me. Okay, to use the graph to find the solution, just hit graph for this, and just set your window so you can see your graph, and then use your trace key, and that will give you your numbers, and the right arrow key, and keep going until you get to where y is really close to 11, and then just look at what x is, and you'll see it's like 2.1 or 1.9. So put 2 in and enter, and you'll see at the bottom of your graphics calculator, x is 2 and y is 11, and that's what you're looking for. When x is 2, what is y? Y is going to be 11. All right, and then you wrote some equations. So here was the problem that you started with, and Khalid bought 3 shawarmas with a €5 note, and he got 77 cents back in change. So we defined a variable. X was the price of 1 shawarma, and he bought 3 of them. So think about what you would do. You've got your €5 note, you spend the money for 3 shawarmas, and what you have left is 77 cents. And then with your partner, you solve this. You guys did it a couple different ways. Jabari subtracted 5 from both sides, then divided both sides by -3, and he got $1.41. And Sarah wanted to do it by subtracting 77 cents from both sides first to get rid of the negative, and then add 3x to both sides, and then divide both sides by 3, and you get the same exact answer. They're both correct. All right, and then we practice some, so you change this to y, and you put in your graphics calculator, and then we used your table, and you just, in your table, you looked for what is x when y is 10, and x was 2 when y is 10. 3 times 2 is 6, and 6 and 4 is 10. And the second one, you took out -1 and you put in y, and you set your window so you could see it, and you used your graph and your trace key, and you just looked for, how do I get -1 for y? And when x is -3, we got -1. -3 times 2 is -6, and -6 plus 5 is -1, so we're sure that it works. And then you did this other word problem and changed it into an equation. So now Sarah's buying, with a $10 bill at McDonald's, 5 drinks. Each drink is the same price, and we let x be the price of 1 soda. So her €10 note minus her sodas that she bought left her with 55 cents. We solved this. You subtracted 10 from both sides and divided both sides by -5 and got $1.89 per soda, and that was correct. And you have a little bit of practice to do. It's in your book right here, and remember, by Sunday night you need 3 hours and 15 topics. And those of you that have finished the green and orange slice of your pie on Alex, remember, you just need to do 7 to 8 topics.